Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Witches Brew podcast. We are in a new location because my son is sleeping in my arms and he will not let me put him down. But I wanted to record this, so if you hear some baby noises, that's why. I've been wanting to record something about gardening for a while now, and it is spring where I am right now, so I thought, what a better time to do this. I'm also doing my garden differently this year than I have in the past. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about why and what I'm doing differently, as well as what I'm planting, what their uses are, etc., etc. Now, do you have to have a garden in order to be a witch? Obviously not. I will say that if you grow plants yourself and use them in spell work, they are even more effective than what you could buy in the store, but it is not necessary. So what I used to do was start all of my seeds in little starter pots and start them indoors and then transplant them out in May. I would start them in February. I'm in a zone 6 in the US. So tip number 1 is, if you are new to gardening, look at what your zone is for your zip code. And that will help you a lot in the planning phases of this. But yeah, the reason I'm not doing it this year, it takes up a lot of time. It takes up a lot of space that we frankly do not have right now with 2 kids. And honestly, time-wise, I just don't have time to do that right now. I also tend to overplant, which has gotten me into a lot of trouble into the past. We're gonna be so honest with ourselves with that. I know that I will not be able to tend to as much as I used to be able to prior to having kids. So I'm scaling back by a lot this year. Okay, so for you, no time has passed. However, for me, my son woke up and I had to feed him. So I'm sorry if I repeat a couple things. But let's go to what I'm doing this year, because we talked about how I'm not going to do my own starters. I'm not going to start my own seeds, at least indoors. There are a couple plants that I will start seeds outdoors. We'll get to that later. This year, I plan on buying most of my starts from a local shop. Obviously, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, those are fine places. You could also go to a farmer's market, or any local place, and they will have reliable crops for your region. I plan on going to a local garden center, and we also have a friend that owns a little local grocer who sells her own starts, so I plan on using that as well. In the past, I have planted like a dozen different tomato plants, like 9 or 10 pepper plants, a bunch of green beans, a bunch of cucumbers, zucchini, summer squash, pumpkins, onions, as well as a bunch of herbs, radishes, carrots, parsnips, turnips. I really have done a lot. And what I have learned from myself, my family doesn't eat radishes or turnips. I've tried lettuces before and they always bolt because I'm in Ohio and it gets way too hot way too quickly. I've never had any luck with spinach. I have had some luck with arugula, but we don't eat a lot of arugula. So why would I plant it? I have poured in a bunch of time and energy over the years into plants that we never actually used. So this year, I plan on being more intentional with what I buy and what I'm asking myself, my future self, to take care of. I plan on doing 2 tomato plants, maybe 3 max. I want a cherry tomato plant, a slicer tomato, and then I also enjoy having San Marzano tomatoes as well because I do make my own sauce, and I enjoy having fresh tomatoes for that. I plan on buying just a couple of pepper plants, mostly bell peppers because that's what we use the most. In the past, I've done a bunch of hot peppers, but in reality, I have a toddler. Like, my toddler's not going to eat spicy food, so therefore we don't make spicy food. We'll make it spicy for us, but it's a little difficult to control with a toddler. If I buy any hot pepper plant, it will likely be a jalapeno because those are probably the most versatile. I will say one of my favorites is the Chinese 5-color pepper, where it starts as a purple pepper and it goes through a couple different colors, white, yellow, orange, and red. And as the colors sequence, it gets hotter. Pre-toddler, that was one of my favorite plants because you could pick them early and really customize the spice level a little better. But again, they are hot, so I'm not going to use them with the toddler, unfortunately. I also plan on buying some herbs. I may buy another lavender plant or 2. We'll see. But I definitely plan on buying oregano, sage, parsley, basil, rosemary, and thyme. I use Italian herbs the most, so therefore that's what I'm going to buy. If I find somewhere a bay leaf plant, I will likely buy one of those and try to keep it indoors just because I think that would be so fun to have my own bay leaf plant because I use a lot in my practice. But like I said, most of these are going to be practical things that we use in cooking. So lavender would be a specialty plant. I have 2 plants out front. I think I might buy 1 to 2 more to keep in a sunnier location because I also use a lot of lavender in my practice as well. Some things I'm starting from seed this year. I love green beans, so I will be doing some pole beans. I will also be doing some cucumbers. I prefer the pickled cucumbers. My mother-in-law has all of the things needed for canning, so I would love to can some pickles this year. I would also like to plant some kidney beans from seed so I can use them to dry them, and then throughout the fall, winter, and spring, put them in chilies and soups. I may try to find a couple other bush bean or pole bean varieties of beans that will be able to be dried and used later on. Again, we're going very, very practical here. Something I will not be doing this year, I personally really love growing zucchini. When I have it growing, I use a lot of it. And in the past, I've also bartered and traded it for other items from people that we know. However, we have the squash bugs. They're like vine borers, and they are everywhere. I planted some mini pumpkins last year. I did not get a single pumpkin off of that vine because it was just covered in squash bugs immediately. So unfortunately, I need to rest with the squash and the pumpkins for a couple years, just in hopes that they die down and then I can start planting again, but do so in a way that will not attract as many. Some things I also may still grow. Carrots and parsnips are really at the top. I love parsnips. I may also grow some beets, which I have in the past, and they've done pretty well for me. My thing is I just need to sit down and remember to thin them out, which can kind of be a pain in the butt. So maybe not planting them as closely together, spreading them out a little bit more to reduce the amount of times that I have to go out and thin would probably be for the best. But I have some seeds downstairs that I also need to use up. So I think it would be very fun for my toddler to see some carrots grow, especially because he very recently got super into carrots and is actually eating them. I would also like to start growing my own sweet potato slips, which I need to start doing this week. This is towards the end of March, if I'm going to have sweet potato slips to plant out in May that are a decent size and hardy enough to survive. I found a couple methods online that I would like to try. One is putting the sweet potato, just an organic sweet potato that you can buy from the grocery store, putting it in some dirt, keeping it fairly watered, not letting it dry out a lot, and then letting it grow slips that way. Or you can put it in water, just not fully immersed, but like half in a glass of water, and let it grow slips that way. If you've never grown sweet potatoes before, they're fairly easy to grow. You just have to leave room for the vines. Like potatoes, they are grown in the ground, but the major difference is sweet potatoes, as I mentioned, they have slips. So you plant the slip, which has roots in the ground, and that is what grows the sweet potato. But the cool thing about that is once you get a crop of sweet potatoes, you can keep a sweet potato or two through the winter and use it to grow slips for the next crop. Now, in the past, I've also grown regular potatoes as well. That's something I'm still kind of hemming and hawing on. I have a laundry basket with holes, and I have straw, and I have dirt. So I could very easily grow potatoes. I think it would be very fun for my toddler to see. However, I don't want to order the potato, oh, I forget what they're called right now, but they're like little potatoes that you can use to plant and grow new potatoes. Instead, I think I'm going to go to the grocery store, buy some organic potatoes, let them just sit and grow sprouts and grow them that way. If I'm going to do it at all, because my potatoes usually sit downstairs. When I buy them off the website, they sit downstairs and I forget to plant them, and then they get all crazy and monster looking, and then it's too late to plant them because you don't have enough time to get adequate amount of potatoes. And I've burned myself too many times. Now, I do also have some fruit plants. I have 2 blueberry plants, a blackberry plant, and a raspberry plant. I have tried strawberries so many times, and I just can't get them to produce. So I've always kept them in pots, so that's probably why the pots will dry out faster than they will in ground. I don't know. I will likely not do strawberries this year, but I do want to get another blackberry and raspberry bush and plant them by my back porch. Now, so far I've kept them in containers. And again, as mentioned with the strawberries, containers just dry out fairly quickly. I do want to exercise a word of caution. If you are planning on planting raspberries and blackberries in the ground, they will take over if you are not careful, because they do send up runners. So that's something you kind of have to stay on top of. Now, you can easily dig up the runners and plant them up, give them away, or you can keep them and they will grow and produce more raspberries or blackberries. But again, I think it's just something that you have to be mindful of. Also, if you live in an area that is very present with deer and other wildlife that eats berries, they will likely eat your raspberries. I lose so many blueberries to birds every single year. So this year, I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to put some wildlife cloth over them. As much as I enjoy looking at the blueberries, I'm so sick of having my berries eaten by the birds. As much as I love the birds. But I would also like to eat some of the blueberries that I worked very hard to grow. I will say, as far as blueberry bushes are concerned, if you buy them from a local place or from Lowe's or Tractor Supply or something like that, they will have bushes that are good for your region. If you are buying them from an online store, make sure you check their pollination and what kind of pollinators they need. Some species of blueberry plants will self-pollinate, and some you need another blueberry plant in order to cross-pollinate with each other. So again, just check that. But as mentioned, if you're buying them from a local store, you're likely not going to have to worry about that. You do have to soak them in water, and that will also change how you plant them, because as you plant them out, you're going to want to make sure you keep them very, very watered for a while. Let the soil dry out a little bit, but again, you're going to have to keep them moist, or else it will go into shock because it doesn't have enough water. So just be very mindful. I recommend looking up some videos on how other people plant out their bare root plants. Let's talk flowers really quick, because I do have some flowers. I have a mini rose bush and I have a climbing rose, both of which I use the petals in my spell work, and I've also taken them and given them to others. I also have a hibiscus plant that it's in a pot right now. I would like to plant it out this year, get it in the ground, because it's more likely to stay moist. So I use that a lot in my spell work as well. Hibiscus is great for divine feminine power as well as softness. I have some lavender. I have a jasmine plant, but I keep it indoors because it would not do well outside here. It needs a little bit more TLC than a rose bush or a lavender plant. Sorry about the angle, my glasses are falling. What type of rose is really up to you. I would love to have some more space so I can have a David Austin rose and an English rose. I just love the structure of those petals. With the kind of property that I have right now, I don't have space for those. Again, with roses, because you can buy them bare root, just be careful on the planting instructions if you are going to buy them bare root. But most of the time, I mean, roses are so easy to find in garden centers and as well as like bigger box stores. I will also be planting out some things like zinnias or some other things that, again, don't require me to start them early. Last year, I started a bunch of plants from seed, and I had so much fun doing so, but then I had to plant them out, and I I was still in my first trimester at the time, so I was in it, and it took me forever to get them planted out, which is a shame because the ones that I did and were able to get out in time produced such beautiful flowers. In the past, I have done snapdragons, yarrow. I've tried delphiniums before. I've tried growing my own lavender from seed before. Those did not work out, mostly because our power went out at some point, and you have to start those a very specific way. I was doing the cold start method, so they were in the fridge, and the power went out and they all molded, which was very upsetting. There is a way where you can start them in like gallon-sized milk jugs, leave them outside for the winter because they do need to go through a cold period in order to start and be stable. If you are going to start things like delphiniums or lavender, there was one other that I started the cold way. But there are other crops that you can start that way too, even lettuce, if you wait a little bit longer. The Garden Answer YouTube channel, if you're looking for tips and tricks on how to do that and how to start seeds, she is fantastic. So her name is Laura. She's wonderful, my mother-in-law, and I love watching her. As far as some other flowers, I've done cosmos. Zinnias are great. I love marigolds. The smell is not great, but it keeps the pests away. I've also done a lot of calendula. The things I like a lot about the marigold and calendula is that if you don't take the plants down right away and you let them go to seed, they will naturally fall and start again in the spring, which is fantastic. Calendula is also great for spell work as far as bringing in joy, optimism, opportunities. I use that in my spell bath for the summer solstice. I also give a lot as offerings. Calendula plants, if you kind of just let them go and do their thing, they will produce a lot. Same with marigolds. Marigolds are also great to use in spell work as far as like joy, protection, opportunity, things like that. Zinnias are also great if you let them go to seed. They're very pretty. I have yet to use them in spell work, but I would like to change that this year. I've also grown cosmos as offerings. And a lot of times you can go out and buy a lot of these a lot of these plants from stores or from garden centers. They can be pretty easy to grow from seed though, if you are willing to start them inside. I will say, if you are willing to start them inside, there are so many that have such great varieties. It's worth looking into. Some of my favorite spots to look for seeds, one of them is Johnny's. I'll tag some other ones as far as like vegetable seeds, but Johnny's is my favorite for flowers. Now, dahlias are great. I've never grown dahlias because honestly, they are beautiful, but the work required to keep them up is daunting to me because you do have to plant out the tubers, and then if you live somewhere where there is heavy frost, heavy snow, like I do, it's recommended that you dig them up, and at that point you would have to cut them apart and then dry store them over the winter, make sure they don't mold, and then replant them out in the spring. And as much as I love dahlias, that just seems like a lot of work. I do also have peonies growing in my garden. Again, I haven't used them in spell work. Our peonies actually did not come up next year, and I have not checked to see if they're going to come up this year. The spot that they are in, there is also a Japanese maple there, and it has gotten progressively shadier since we first moved in. Peonies do require a certain light level, so that's another thing you're going to want to check as you are planning out really any crop, is the light level of the place that you want to plant them. A sunny location is always going to be better. You can do part sun, part shade, but the more shade they experience throughout the day, as well as the type of light that they get early morning versus late afternoon into evening sun, especially during the summer, is going to make a big difference on the growth of your plant as well as the plant production. I think I'm going to wrap it up there though, because I think I have said my piece. I would love, once I get some things established here, I would love to do a garden tour and show you guys around, let you guys see what I actually end up buying and growing, because March me is very different than me at the beginning of May in a garden center. The beginning of May me in a garden center is so much more naive and hopeful and optimistic than me pretty much the rest of the year. So anyways, I hope you found this information helpful. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Please let me know what you plan on planting in your gardens this year, as well as like variety types if you have them, because I love trying a new variety of vegetable or even flowers. So again, thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you next time. Bye.